So TikTok is for over consumers, and when you are honestly spiritual, like, you don't want to put out a bunch of your energy for free unless you do have a strategy to gain abundance in some way. And 10 times out of 10, when you're honestly spiritual, the strategy that you have has a lot to do with self-development and spiritual growth, so you're not going to get what you deserve from being honestly spiritual. So when there are a bunch of mainstream spiritual things going on, a lot of the honestly spiritual people go into hermit mode and learn how to really connect with the divine in order to attract and align themselves properly. So when people be up here slaving themselves over an app that is made for mass consumption, it's like you kind of lose the idea of what your journey entails anyways. Like, a lot of people, when they are honestly spiritual, they begin to lose hope in life because they see what other people would be willing to do just for money. And they try to become detached from the material realm to a point where they're scared to have monetary gain. They're scared to want materials. They're scared to desire the finer things because they're so busy trying to stay honest to themselves. And I feel like with that, it's like this thing where when you are aligned with your higher purpose and you are awakening to your spiritual inheritance, you become very down and judgmental about what other people decide to do with themselves and for themselves. Because it's like, you got to remember that most of these spiritual things are used just for healing, like using spirituality as a tool versus being in your higher purpose. Like, a lot of people are in their higher purpose, and a lot of people simply just turned to spirituality strictly for the tools. And that's completely okay, but it's like, once you notice that you're using spirituality as a tool, you do have to go on to the next thing. You do have to find ways to will money, wealth, monetary gain, and stuff like that. You do have to allow for yourself to enjoy whatever it is that is being offered. Like, don't be afraid to step out of that healing. Like, some people become so obsessed with being in hermit mode and in their shadow phase that they forget that you still have to have a human experience, and you still have to have things that will allow for you to create a certain quality of life that you are looking toward. Like, they begin to suffer in their spiritual path because they think that it's going to always be about healing, or it's going to always be about being a truth seeker or being on a voyager path of soul searching and stuff like that. And that's not what it's supposed to be spiritually. And for me personally, that's how I could tell that a lot of people up here, they're just looking to use spirituality as a tool. Because if you're born for a higher purpose, you're going to be in your calling your entire life. Like, your entire life, you're going to be spiritual. You're going to already be connected to the divine. Your life is going to already be divinely guided from day one of being born here as a human being. But some people, they start going through life things. They turn to tools, and they turn to different ways to seek refuge for themselves. But then it's like they start trying to use it as an ego so they can shun other people. Like, people that are already in their higher purpose, they don't really look for monetary gain because life itself is a monetary gain. A lot of people are blissful and prosperous without the internet. A lot of people thrive without the internet. A lot of people really truly stay connected to themselves and to their purpose through really staying in whatever traditional old school ways that has always kept them in their higher calling. So when we get to talk about like higher self and lower self, understand that that is a tool, because there's no such thing as your higher self and lower self being two completely different people. Okay, you can't have the light without the darkness. You can't, abandon one and go more towards the other. You have to integrate both things and be of both things. You have to understand that just piecing yourself apart like that isn't doing anything but keeping you confused about what you're really supposed to be focused on, Understand that when you're doing shadow work, it's literally for you to forgive yourself so that you can drop the emotional, mental, and heart baggage so that you continue to go forward. Understanding that if you do turn to tarot and crystals, it might be something that you use to help you confirm your intuition versus just gaslighting yourself or being around a bunch of manipulators or narcissistic people. And some people, they forget that. They forget that most of the shit in spirituality are just tools to help you pass on to the next level in life. They get stuck there and they start just tripping because it's like they judge everybody. Oh, you shouldn't do this with your spiritual gifts. You shouldn't do that on your spiritual journey. You shouldn't do this. No, what you shouldn't do is neglect yourself. Too busy looking at the outer world and what other people are doing, how other people are aligning, what other people got going on. What you shouldn't do is pass judgment on yourself so hard that you forget the purpose of why humanity exists anyways. You know what I'm saying? So certain people, you choose what you want to do with your energy. Me personally, I've put so much of my energy on this platform. I've had so many TikTok platforms. I've done the work, and I really was just doing it because I was at a point in my life where I'm like, if I ain't got nothing else, at least I got my spiritual abilities. If I ain't got nothing else, at least I am connected to Source Divine. And I used that to my advantage. I used it in the most positive way ever. And I got a lot of fluck for it. I got a lot of ridicule. I've even had my own personal people like just try to tear me down because I began to reveal how spiritual I truly am. And I hid it my entire life since I was young. Like, a lot of people didn't know that the reason why I was such a loner growing up was because I was always connecting with my ancestors. Because I was always doing sacred rituals and meetings with my ancestors and traveling in my dream state, fighting spiritual warfare since I was a little girl and doing, just doing stuff privately. And as I got older, I began to feel disconnected from myself because I was too busy focusing on the 3D reality of thinking that my life was supposed to be a certain way. So I ended up around the wrong people in the wrong environments, and I couldn't take it no more. So I decided to turn back to what really kept me grounded as a child. And once shit hit the fan, everybody caved in on me. But one thing I always knew was that I was born for this. So it ain't gonna be nothing nobody can do to deter me. But it's just like this thing where people forget that everybody that uses spirituality doesn't have a calling in the spirit realm. You're just called to heal. You're just called to awaken parts of yourself that you've neglected. You've just been called to remember yourself, and that's okay. A lot of people are not made to have spiritual careers. So it's like when you start slaving your energy because you want something for yourself and you're utilizing spirituality as a tool, you have to remember that eventually you have to make sure your 3D life aligns with what the spirit realm has going on for real. Or else you're going to find yourself in a cycle, in a loop. If you don't have a spiritual calling, you're going to be stuck continuously being a people pleaser, helping people, being manipulated, being in bad environments, going through the same cycles over and over again. Because what you really need to do is understand within yourself that all you have to do is completely accept yourself and be whole within. That's it. That's all. And leave it up to the people that have spiritual careers to do their job correctly. Don't weaponize spirituality because you don't understand yourself and what your life is about. Really hone in and anchor down. That's it.